The Phoenix sun beat down on the cracked asphalt, baking the air so thick it actually burned the back of my throat. I stood completely frozen at the edge of parking space 42, empty, no shattered glass. No neon tow warning painted on the yellow concrete curb. My $45,000 vehicle was just gone. I had made the final payment exactly 1 month ago. 6 years of skipped lunches, overtime shifts, and relentless budgeting, all culminating in this one piece of total independence. Now it was just a dead patch of scorching blacktop. My hands shook as I gripped my phone and dialed my mother. The line clicked open. Before I could choke out the rising panic, her voice cut through the receiver, bored and entirely annoyed. "Stop being so dramatic. Caitlin is meeting her new boyfriend's family tonight. She needed a luxury vehicle so they would not look down on her. You can take the city bus for a few days." The call clicked dead. A flat dial tone hummed against my ear. The sheer suffocating audacity slammed into my chest, knocking the breath right out of my lungs. I lowered the phone. The glass screen faded to black, reflecting my stunned expression. 30 years old. A high school teacher who spends 40 hours a week staring down defiant teenagers, breaking up cafeteria brawls, and managing classrooms full of absolute chaos with unquestioned authority. Yet, standing in that blistering asphalt oven, I was immediately reduced back to the family doormat. Ellen, the human automatic teller machine. Ellen, the endless well of forgiveness. This theft was not some sudden impulsive mistake. It was the climax of a toxic disease that had infected my family for decades. Just 1 week prior, the exact same entitlement ruined my Friday night. I had saved up for 2 solid months to buy a custom navy silk dress for the school district's annual gala. A rare treat for myself, something to make me feel like a living, breathing woman instead of just a grading machine. I found it crumpled in the corner of my bathroom floor, reeking of cheap red wine. Caitlin stood right there in my hallway, casually applying lip gloss in my mirror. She just shrugged her shoulders. She called it a cheap piece of fabric and told me to get over it. Uncle David sat on my living room couch the entire time. He watched her ruin my property. He watched my hands shake with suppressed anger. He just flipped the page of his sports magazine and muttered his favorite empty mantra, "You are older, Ellen. Just let it go. Keep the peace. It is only a dress." His cowardice made my blood boil. The peace he constantly preached was nothing but my forced silence. People like David are not peacemakers. They are the silent enablers who hand the matches to the arsonist, then tell you to stop complaining about the smoke. They broke my boundaries back then, expecting me to quietly sweep up the glass. Today, standing in this empty parking lot, the broom was staying in the closet. My phone buzzed against my sweaty palm. A social media notification lit up the lock screen. Caitlin's name. I swiped open the application. A new video story started playing. There she was, flashing her perfectly whitened teeth from the driver's seat of my vehicle. The interior looked immaculate, the black leather I had meticulously conditioned just 2 days ago gleaming in the afternoon sun. She adjusted the rearview mirror, pouted for the camera, and blew a kiss. Bright pink text flashed across the bottom of the video. Surprise gift from my amazing family, so blessed. A cold, sharp knot formed in the center of my chest, completely defying the 100-degree heat pressing down on my shoulders. The raw betrayal eclipsed the $45,000 price tag. This was about the violation. My parents had let themselves into my apartment. They had rummaged through my kitchen drawers while I was in the shower. They hunted down my spare key, pocketed it, and handed my 6 years of skipped vacations, late-night grading, and financial discipline to a 26-year-old parasite. My knuckles turned white around the metal edge of my phone. The air in the parking lot turned thin and brittle, ready to snap. I shoved the phone into my purse and marched straight toward the nearest transit station. Crying was for victims. I was going to their house. The city bus groaned through the suffocating Phoenix traffic. 45 agonizing minutes of sitting on cracked vinyl seats, the ambient heat baking the dust into my skin. Every jolt of the suspension rattled my teeth. The entire ride, my jaw clamped shut so tight the muscles in my neck throbbed. I was not just sweating from the weather. I was burning with the absolute certainty that my own flesh and blood viewed my life as entirely expendable. I shoved my spare key into my parents' front door and forced it open. A blast of pristine, frigid air conditioning hit my face, a stark contrast to the hellish heat outside. My mother Charlotte sat comfortably on the plush leather sofa, casually swirling a glass of iced tea. My father Maxwell lounged in his recliner, flipping through the Sunday sports section. It was a picture-perfect, tranquil suburban afternoon, completely built on my stolen property and shattered trust. "Where is the vehicle?" My voice sliced right through the quiet hum of the ceiling fan. Charlotte rolled her eyes. She set her glass down with a sharp, dismissive clink. "Are you seriously throwing a tantrum over this? Look at yourself. You are 30 years old, Ellen. You are single. You sit at home grading papers every weekend. What do you even need a luxury vehicle for? Caitlin has a future to build. She needs to impress this new family. You being selfish is going to ruin her chances." The sheer delusion hung in the air. They honestly believed every word. They viewed my independence as an insult and my hard-earned bank account as their communal charity fund. "You broke into my home. You stole my property." "We took what the family needed," Maxwell snapped, slamming his newspaper down onto the coffee table. That was when a crisp white envelope caught my attention. It sat right next to his coffee mug, partially covered by the sports page. I recognized the official seal of the State Motor Vehicle Department. A vehicle title transfer form peeked out from the flap. The breath hitched in my throat. They were not just borrowing my vehicle for a date, they were actively plotting to forge my signature and give it away permanently. I lunged across the woven rug. My fingers brushed the edge of the thick paper. A heavy hand slammed down onto my wrist. Before I could rip my arm away, Charlotte's open palm cracked across my cheek. The slap echoed like a gunshot off the vaulted ceiling, leaving a high-pitched ringing in my left ear. Immediately, she shoved my shoulders with her full body weight. My boots slipped against the polished hardwood floor. I crashed backward, my momentum throwing me dangerously off balance. The sharp corner of the heavy oak coffee table dug deep into my right ribs. A sickening, blinding flare of pain shot through my side, instantly stealing my breath. I collapsed onto the rug, gasping for air, clutching my side. Maxwell stood up, towering over my crumpled body. He pointed a thick, accusatory finger right at my face. "Go ahead. Call the police, Ellen. Let us see who they believe. A bitter, hysterical spinster, or the loving parents who kept a roof over her head. We paid for everything you have. You have absolutely nothing without us." The stinging heat radiated across my cheek. The throbbing ache in my ribs thudded in perfect time with my racing heart. For my entire life, this was the exact moment the conditioning kicked in. This was the moment I would apologize just to stop the screaming. I would shrink myself into nothing just to keep their toxic peace. I swallowed the metallic taste of blood pooling inside my bitten cheek. I planted my palms flat on the hardwood and forced myself to stand. My bruised ribs screamed in protest, but my spine remained perfectly straight. I locked eyes with the woman who just struck me. The fiery, chaotic rage inside my chest completely evaporated, leaving behind a cold, absolute, terrifying void. I turned my back to them and walked out the front door, leaving it wide open to the blistering desert heat. The agonizing bus ride back to my apartment felt like a suffocating blur. Every shallow breath sent a sharp stabbing ache through my bruised ribs. The red welt on my cheek burned like a fresh branding iron. For 30 years, my parents relied on my predictability. They banked on my desperate need for their approval. They assumed I would crawl into my bed, bury my face in a pillow, and silently mourn the loss of my savings while they celebrated Caitlin's new romance. They were wrong. My eyes remained completely dry. The frightened, people-pleasing daughter died on their living room rug. A cold, calculating strategist took her place. I unlocked my front door and dropped my purse onto the kitchen counter. I sank onto the wooden bar stool, pressing a hand against my throbbing side. Dealing with hostile, manipulative people is literally in my job description. Whenever an entitled mother storms into my classroom demanding a grade change for her failing son, I never argue. I let them talk. I let their arrogance dig their own grave. Narcissists cannot resist the urge to gloat. They possess a pathological need to let you know they hold the power. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened my text message thread with Charlotte. If I dialed 911 right now, Maxwell would play the victim. He would spin a convincing story about a family misunderstanding, a shared vehicle, a hysterical daughter overreacting. Police officers hate domestic disputes. They frequently brush them off as civil matters. I needed an ironclad confession. I needed my mother to put her own criminality into writing. My thumbs hovered over the glass screen. I crafted the message deliberately, stripping away all my boiling anger. I played the exact role they expected, the weak, defeated, whining scapegoat. Did you really take my vehicle just for Caitlin's date? You know, I bought it with my own savings. I hit send. The delivery bubble turned blue. I set the phone flat on the cool granite counter and watched the screen. 3 gray dots appeared immediately. She was typing. Charlotte could never leave a challenge unanswered. The dots vanished, then reappeared. 10 seconds later, the screen lit up with a new message. Yes, I did. And you will stop acting like a spoiled brat. I am your mother. I decide who gets what in this family. She needs it more than you do right now. Go to sleep and stop texting me. I stared at the glowing words. A slow, icy smile crept across my bruised face. She just handed me a written, time-stamped confession of grand theft. The steel teeth of the trap just clamped shut around her ankle. Now I needed the exact coordinates. I swiped out of the messages and tapped the silver icon for my vehicle's integrated management application. A loading circle spun for exactly 2 seconds. The digital map materialized on the screen. A bright red pin dropped instantly onto a satellite view of Scottsdale. I tapped the pin. The address populated on the screen. The Velvet Room. An ultra-exclusive, obscenely expensive steakhouse right in the heart of the luxury district. Caitlin was sitting at a candlelit table swirling an expensive cocktail, laughing with her wealthy boyfriend's family. She thought my blood and sweat were her divine right. My thumb hovered over the emergency control panel on the screen. The hunt was over. It was time for the slaughter. My thumb hovered over the glowing red shield icon labeled Stolen Vehicle Protocol. I pressed it. The application confirmed the command instantly. The vehicle's anti-theft system engaged. 40 miles away, the heavy doors deadlocked. The engine completely immobilized. 30 seconds later, my phone vibrated violently against the granite counter. Caitlin's name flashed across the screen. I answered the call and put it on speaker. The deafening, rhythmic shriek of the car alarm blasted through the audio, practically shaking my kitchen. Ellen Caitlin shrieked, her voice cracking with pure, suffocating panic. The vehicle just died. The doors will not open. Unlock it right now. I took a slow sip of my ice water, letting her screaming fill the room. His parents are standing right outside the glass, she sobbed, banging her fists against the steering wheel. The loud thuds echoed over the blaring siren. They are staring at me. The valet is pointing. You are embarrassing me in front of his family. Turn it off. I pressed the red end call button. The screeching chaos vanished. I immediately dialed 911. My $45,000 vehicle was stolen earlier today, I told the dispatcher. My voice perfectly level. I tracked it. The thief is currently trapped inside the cabin at the Velvet Room in Scottsdale. Send an officer. The first blade of the guillotine just dropped. Grand theft auto is a felony in Arizona. The wealthy, status-obsessed family, Caitlin, tried so desperately to impress, just watched her get dragged out of a stolen vehicle in handcuffs. Exactly 45 minutes later, the second blade fell. Heavy fists pounded against my apartment door, shaking the entire door frame. Open this door right now, Charlotte screamed. Her voice was guttural, completely stripped of its usual suburban polish. I did not move toward the entryway. I picked up my phone and opened the live feed from my doorbell camera. The screen displayed the absolute destruction of their false reality. The narcissist's mask had completely melted away. Charlotte's face was beet red, her expensive makeup running down her cheeks mixed with sweat and furious tears. Maxwell stood behind her, kicking the base of my door with his heavy boots. For 30 years, they maintained absolute control over me. Now, stripped of their power, they devolved into cornered animals. You ruined your sister's life, Charlotte shrieked into the camera lens, her eyes bulging with unhinged rage. She is in a jail cell. Call the precinct and drop the charges right now. I stood perfectly still in the dark kitchen watching the tiny screen. You think you are smart, Charlotte battered her fists against the reinforced wood. I pushed you into that table. I slapped your face. So what I am, your mother. You come out here right now, or I swear I will tear you apart with my bare hands. A cold smile touched my lips. She just gave me the final piece of the puzzle. I tapped the export button on the security application. The high-definition video, complete with crystal-clear audio of her violent threats, saved directly to my phone. I dialed 911 for the second time tonight. 2 individuals who assaulted me earlier today are currently attempting to break down my front door, I said. They are threatening to kill me. 3 minutes later, flashing red and blue lights swept across the camera feed. The pounding on my door abruptly stopped. Through the screen, I watched the arrogant monsters who raised me freeze in terror. 2 armed officers ordered them to the ground. Maxwell stammered, trying to play the respectable patriarch, but an officer immediately shoved him face first against the hood of the patrol car. The metallic click of handcuffs echoed through my phone speaker. Assault. Terroristic threats. The predator's trap worked flawlessly. My living room was finally silent. The heavy oak doors of the municipal courthouse swung shut behind me, sealing in the smell of stale coffee and industrial floor wax. 3 days had passed since the arrests. Charlotte, Maxwell, and Caitlin sat clustered at the defense table. The pristine country club veneer was entirely gone, replaced by oversized, bright orange county jumpsuits. Heavy steel chains bound their wrists to their waists. The public defender flipped through a thin manila folder, requesting a bail reduction. The judge denied it instantly. The Wilsons had leveraged every cent they owned to maintain their fake wealthy lifestyle. They possessed 0 liquid assets. Without my bank account to drain, they were completely financially ruined. Charlotte slowly turned her head. Her bloodshot eyes found me sitting in the second row of the gallery. The vicious, screaming monster from my front porch was dead. The arrogant matriarch was gone. Only a hollow, terrified shell remained, her cracked lips parted. She mouthed 2 silent words across the quiet room. Save me. My expression remained perfectly blank. I stood up. The wooden bench creaked loudly, drawing the attention of the entire courtroom. I smoothed the wrinkles from my tailored skirt, turned my back on the defense table, and walked out the double doors. I abandoned them to their cold steel cage. The air conditioning inside my rental vehicle hummed quietly against the blistering Phoenix heat. Halfway to my apartment, the dashboard screen flashed. Uncle David's name glowed on the caller identification display. I tapped the accept button. Ellen, this has gone entirely too far, he barked, his voice dripping with righteous indignation. They are looking at state prison. You are acting completely heartless. Drop the charges right now. Blood is blood and family is family. I gripped the leather steering wheel. When Charlotte slapped my face and shoved me into that coffee table, you stared at a sports magazine. You turned your head. I was trying to keep the peace, he yelled. You are ripping this entire family apart over a piece of metal. You are not a peacemaker, David, I replied, my voice dropping to a low, lethal whisper. You are a coward. You tolerate abuse because you are terrified of becoming their next target. You demand my blood just to keep your own hands clean. Do not ever contact me again. I severed the connection. I opened the settings on my phone and permanently blocked his number. The ringing ceased. The toxic demands vanished. The silence inside the vehicle wrapped around me like a heavy protective shield. For the first time in 30 years, the air in my lungs belonged entirely to me. The gavel fell with a heavy wooden thud, finalizing the total destruction of the Wilson family facade. The judge did not care about my mother's expensive country club memberships or my father's impressive golf handicap. He looked right through their suburban privilege and saw them for exactly what they were. Caitlin was sentenced to 3 years in a state correctional facility for grand theft auto with eligibility for parole after 18 months. Charlotte and Maxwell each received 4 years in state prison for felony assault and terroristic threats. The court also ordered a joint restitution of $45,000 to cover the damages to my vehicle and my legal fees. Their pristine, carefully curated reputation disintegrated overnight. The wealthy women at my mother's church planning committee abruptly stopped calling. The neighbors watched through their blinds as the bank officially foreclosed on their meticulously manicured 4-bedroom house. Their luxury leased vehicles were towed away in the middle of the night. The absolute deafening silence from their elite social circle was far more punishing to them than the cold concrete walls of their prison cells. They lost their freedom, but more importantly, they lost their entire audience. 8 months later, a plain white envelope arrived in my mailbox. The return address bore the official stamp of the county correctional facility. Charlotte's handwriting, usually sweeping and elegant, looked cramped, jagged, and desperate. I carried the envelope inside, broke the seal, and unfolded the lined yellow paper. She did not apologize for striking my face. She did not express a single ounce of remorse for stealing my vehicle or trying to ruin my career. Instead, she wrote that she had generously decided to forgive me for putting her in a cage. She reminded me that she had given me life, claiming that a daughter's ultimate biological duty was to protect her mother no matter the cost. She ended the letter by demanding I deposit $200 into her commissary account by Friday. A year ago, that piece of paper would have triggered a suffocating spiral of anxiety. I would have spent days drafting a dozen furious replies, begging her to finally see my pain, trying to logically explain my boundaries to a woman committed to misunderstanding me. Today, standing in my sunlit kitchen, I did not feel a spike of anger. I did not feel a wave of sadness. I felt absolutely nothing. I dropped the unread second page and the envelope directly into the kitchen trash bin. I turned my back to it and went right back to brewing my morning coffee. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is total indifference. Indifference is the ultimate impenetrable shield against a narcissist. My new apartment sits on the west side of the city, overlooking the rugged mountains. The space is bathed in warm, golden light, instead of the suffocating, tense atmosphere of my past. The air inside these walls feels incredibly light. I am no longer waiting for the next fabricated crisis. I am no longer bracing my body for the next insult disguised as a joke. My dining table is no longer a battlefield where I have to earn my right to exist. Last Friday, I hosted a small dinner party with 3 fellow teachers who have become my true family. The people who ask about my day and actually wait to hear the answer. While carrying a heavy ceramic serving dish to the table, my grip slipped. The dish shattered across the hardwood floor, sending marinara sauce splattering against the white baseboards. I instantly froze. My shoulders rushed up to my ears. My heart hammered against my bruised ribs. Completely expecting the screaming to start. I expected to be called clumsy, selfish, and stupid. But nobody screamed. Nobody sighed in loud, exaggerated disappointment. My friend simply handed me a clean kitchen towel, grabbed the broom from the pantry, and laughed about a much worse mess she had made in her own kitchen the week prior. That quiet, boring, completely normal grace was a massive revelation. It taught me what genuine, unconditional connection actually looks like. Real love does not demand your blood and sanity as a security deposit. Real family is built on mutual respect, not parasitic extraction. If you are watching this and you recognize the familiar heavy ache in my story, I need you to listen to me very carefully. The hardest truth about surviving a toxic family structure is accepting that the parents you desperately deserved never existed. You are grieving a fantasy. In a narcissistic family dynamic, the highly competent, responsible child is never celebrated. You are penalized for your independence. You become the designated shock absorber for everyone else's dysfunction. They call you the strong one, so they never have to feel guilty about loading boulders onto your back. Rule number 1, your silent sacrifice is their favorite weapon. Enduring abuse does not earn you a badge of honor. It does not magically generate gratitude in the hearts of entitled people. It simply trains them to extract more from your veins. When you swallow your righteous anger to keep the peace, you are only keeping their peace. You are waging a violent, destructive war against your own nervous system. You must stop waiting for a miraculous breakthrough that is never coming. Rule number 2. The worst accomplices always wear the mask of peacekeepers. People like my Uncle David are the invisible glue that holds toxic families together. They witness the cruelty firsthand. They see the bruises on your skin and the tears in your eyes. But because they value their own comfort over your basic safety, they demand that you remain quiet. They will accuse you of holding a grudge simply because you refuse to let the abuser stab you a second time. Cut the peacekeepers out of your life with the exact same ruthless precision you apply to the primary abusers. They are not protecting the family unit, they are protecting the disease. Rule number 3. Blood is a biological accident. Accountability is a choice. Society will constantly try to guilt you with the concept of unconditional family loyalty. But loyalty without firm boundaries is just self-destruction disguised as virtue. Sharing a genetic sequence does not grant anyone immunity from the law. Sharing a last name does not give someone permission to lay their hands on you, steal your financial future, and demand a thank you note in return. You are completely allowed to walk away. You are allowed to call the police on your own mother. You are allowed to fiercely protect the person behind the boundaries, even if it means leaving the people who raised you completely behind in the ashes. Have you ever watched your own monumental sacrifices be handed to someone else on a silver platter just because they were the chosen favorite? How did you finally find the courage to break the chain and reclaim your life? Tell me your story down in the comments. Subscribe to this channel because on the long, difficult road to taking your life back from the people who tried to break you, you are never walking alone. I am Ellen, and for the first time in 30 years, I am entirely free.